Assistant Secretary, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
This is the second North Korean human rights sanctions on North Korean officials. What is the significance of this latest sanctions?
Well, I think it shows that we remain committed to identifying those members of the North Korean leadership and security apparatus who are responsible for the worst human rights abuses that happen in that country and to holding them accountable. Mm-hmm. And I think that process, which is part of our law in the United States now, will continue. And I hope that it sends a message to everybody in the North Korean government that there is a long-term price to be paid for being involved in things like management of the labor camps or censorship or the persecution of dissidents who have fled the country.
Mm-hmm. Following the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, this time around his younger sister Kim Yo-jong was also included. What was behind this decision?
Well, she is responsible for a branch of the North Korean government that engages in propaganda and censorship, the massive system of information control that exists in the country, the system of deification and worship of the leadership. And so we're not naming her because she's somebody's sister, we're naming her because of the personal role that she has played.
Will there be a series of more human rights sanctions against North Korea?
It's a regular process. Mm-hmm. It is done now in accordance with a law that our Congress has passed, so that remains in place even though there is a change in administrations here in Washington. And I think there's bipartisan support for this policy. Republicans, Democrats support it, and I imagine that there will be subsequent lists.
Mm-hmm. What is your advice to the Trump administration?
My advice is that any long-term solution to the security issues that have troubled us coming from North Korea for many, many years is not likely to come until the North Korean people have the power to shape the future of their country. And in that respect, the human rights policy, although it's the right thing to do in and of itself, reinforces the larger strategy that I hope the next administration will continue to pursue.
Mm-hmm. What is your message to the North Korean government?
Well, they can stop putting people in concentration camps who disagree with them. They can stop executing people who the dear leader of the country is angry at. They can start treating their people like human beings with dignity. I'm afraid that the government of North Korea probably fears that if they actually did any of those things, their people might wonder, well, why are we ruled by one family for decade after decade, and why is the Korean Peninsula divided into two countries? That's probably what they're afraid of, that if they were to give their people the ability to decide for themselves, they would make decisions that are not favorable to the Kim family and to the current regime. But that is what they owe their people, and that's what we will not rest until we see happens.
I see. Just one last question. A very high-level diplomat, Yeong just recently defected to South Korea. Do you see any signs of change within the North Korean government with the influx of information from outside?
Well, the big change is what you just mentioned. It's the influx of information, and people from regular people living in the provinces to the elites living in Pyongyang, they know much more now about the outside world. They know that their country is not normal. They know that people in South Korea live with much greater wealth, much greater freedom, and much greater security than they do. And I think over time that is bound to have an impact on the thinking of people up and down the chain in North Korea. And we can't predict when that will start leading to political changes. But I think we can say that the political changes that will eventually come will have their roots, will have their origins in this breaking down of the information controls, which we are encouraging as much as we can.